Well, while they do that, I'd like to thank Engineer Greg Ogbefun, the president of Ship Owners Association of Nigeria, for eloquently discussing and highlighting the issues with the Cabotage Act and some of the domino effects or multiplier effects on the industry. My presentation today will be on the ship repair industry in Nigeria. We're going to talk about the challenges and opportunities. But before we go into the presentation, I'd like to touch a bit on Nigerdock. Is there anybody here that does not know Nigerdock or Nigerdock's capabilities? For the benefit of those that don't, Nigerdock is a member of Jagal Energy. We are a leading energy services company, and we provide a range of services, which includes ship repair, offshore fabrication, brownfield modifications and maintenance, industrial training, and logistics and support-based services. During the course of the presentation, I'll be shedding more light on our capabilities and the effects of not just the Cabotage Act, but of the current economy, how it has impacted both Nigerdock and other ship repair companies in this industry. We're going to start with an overview of the ship repair industry in Nigeria. Then we'll talk about the industry in Africa, a little bit on the West African market. Then we'll talk about the government role, the private sector role, the challenges, opportunities, and lastly, Nigerdock ship repair. After the presentation, we're also going to play a very, very short video. It's about 2 minutes. So you see firsthand of our capabilities and the world-class facilities we have in country. First, I'll start by correcting the misconception on ship repair. This misconception is that a lot of people think ship repair is all about dry docking. But the correct way to look at it is ship repair is repairing any equipment, any part of the vessel, any sophisticated equipment, any propeller, any part of the hull that requires them to be put in good order or good shape. So any form of equipment on the vessel, be it the controls, be it fuel monitoring, be it propulsion, be it HVAC, whether it's mechanical, hydraulic, or electrical, when we repair that, that's what we call the ship repair on the vessel. The classifications in the past have been in two folds. First is the travel, maintenance, and repairs. Second is the periodic repairs. But I'd like to expand that a little bit more today to include daily maintenance and the unpredicted repairs and maintenance. For daily maintenance, this is done by the vessel crew. If we compare it to your vehicle, every morning you check the water, you check the oil, you can look at the tires and see, is it gauged, is it full with air or not? This can be done by yourself. But when you now begin to move into the travel, maintenance, and repair, it takes it up a notch. Your driver yourselves cannot put air in the tire unless you have specialized equipment. You cannot do oil change unless you have specialized equipment and you've gone through some form of training. Although I know in Nigeria sometimes we do not have training to do oil changes. But in ship repair, based on the sophistication of the equipment that we have in operations, there has to be a form of training. So travel, maintenance, and repair means that you schedule a short dock or a short stay at a ship repair facility. A lot of the repairs in this area is above the waterline. So if you have some welding to do, you need to change some doors, you need to change some locks, you need to look at the engines, do diagnostics on the engines, you need to look at the controls or fuel monitoring system. This is what we categorize into travel maintenance. The next is the periodic maintenance. Now, the periodic maintenance or repair is the scheduled maintenance that is quite familiar to most of us, which is dry docking. A lot of this work is work done or repairs done below the waterline. So you need a dry dock or you need a floating dock to accommodate the vessel. And then you do the repairs, be it changing the thickness, changing the plates on the hulls due to the reduced thickness on the hulls. It could be the propeller. You need to machine some parts. You might need to change the propeller or even the propulsion system or the HVAC. Then we have the unpredicted repairs. Now, this is due to events, maybe accidents, maybe failures of some sort on the systems. At that point, you come in for repairs. Also, it is scheduled and cannot be done by the vessel crew. If you look at the graph on the right, it's referenced Abuja MOU. It shows the number of inspections done by this organization on a yearly basis. In Nigeria, we had in 2016 about 9,000 calls at MPA and the surrounding ports. Out of those 9,000 vessels, Abuja MOU did inspections on about 3% of them, about 300. Out of them, 300, 89 of them had deficiencies. Now, the deficiencies range from documentation to parts to equipment not meeting the right specification. So it shows that there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room for increased operations or services in the ship repair industry. Next slide, please. Overview of the industry in Nigeria. We have about 7 operational facilities or docks in Nigeria. One of them being Nigerdock. We have the largest dry dock in country. It can take up to 25,000 tons dead weight. But as we've noted here, that capacity is inadequate for very large crude carriers and LNG gas carriers. We do not have that capacity in country. And the earlier we develop capacity for this, the more we can achieve in the industry. We also have Naval Dockyard, West Atlantic Shipyard, STARS, most of them located in Port Harcourt. In terms of market size, the average ship repair cost is about $200,000. And this depends on the range of services. If you haven't docked your vessels in the stipulated time by class inspection, then these values or this cost could rise. It could encompass dry docking, it could be crane repair, it could be controls repair, it could be propulsion system repair, or even the propellers. And I previously mentioned, in 2016, we had an average of 9,000 port calls for various reasons. Now, the vessels, the calls have reduced in 2017, as rightly mentioned by the president of Ship Owners Association of Nigeria. They've greatly reduced, and we know why. There's been a downward trend in terms of the oil and gas prices, but now we're beginning to see a gradual or steady increase in the price. Therefore, they should have an equal or a domino effect on the oil and gas industry. What do I mean by that? There'll be more projects. As you have more projects, you require more vessels to support the projects offshore. As you have more projects, you require more vessels to supply food, to supply materials offshore. And as they supply materials and food offshore, and even support services offshore, then there's going to be an increase in a class inspections. If there's an increase in class inspections, definitely the class inspectors will pick out issues with the vessels because they do not meet the class requirements. By not meeting the class requirements, it means that we, as business owners, as companies, we have more work to do. We can retain more Nigerians to work. In Africa, Nigeria has the largest or the second largest ship ownership, second to only South Africa. If you look at the market share in Africa, you see Nigeria is the second, has the second largest port calls, which is about 9,600. South Africa has a little bit over 14,000 port calls in 2016 alone. We have facilities in South Africa, in Tema in Ghana, this Navi, and even in Cameroon also. The market, again, is quite large. These costs are an average 200,000. And as I previously mentioned, the cost could be reviewed upwards or downwards depending on the last dry docking activities or services that were done on the vessel, depending on the age of the vessel. Once a vessel starts clocking 10, 15 years, a lot of moving parts begin to spoil. They need repairs. They need overhauls. If the maintenance culture is poor, then you have an impact of the overall cost of repair when they do come for repairs. Throughout Africa, there were over 40,000 port calls. So we can do the math. That shows the market share or the market size of the ship repair industry in Africa. Next slide. Okay. What is the government role in this industry? The government has signed, Mr. President has signed an executive order on the ease of doing business to reduce bottlenecks. Apart from that, they've looked at the challenges in financing for startups. The Bank of Industry has been introduced to support companies. Again, legislation has been introduced. One of them being the Cabotage Act that was eloquently talked about by the President of SWAN. We do agree that there are issues surrounding the Cabotage Act, but we commend the government for implementing it in the first place. It's more of a journey. It's not done in one day. So as we highlight the issues, we expect that with groups like SWAN and other groups, we can push or pull in the right direction together with all stakeholders to formulate the right policies or to correct the issues that have been highlighted. Again, the NOGIC Act. The NOGIC Act is aimed to domicile work in Nigeria for local content development. I can tell you here today that without the NOGIC Act, I myself may not be standing here today. So the government has done something good. The private sector roles is also equally important. One of the speakers mentioned lobbying, and it's not a bad thing. It's done everywhere else in the world. Lobbying pushes the government in the right direction. It facilitates good policies because the lobbying groups are not just there to tear down what the government has done, but they're there to serve as an intermediary between the private sector and the government. Whatever issues are highlighted in the private sector, the lobbying groups or the lobbyists will go to the government and shed more light on it, look at the advantages and disadvantages of the issues, and implement, push, and facilitate policies that will close out or close the gaps on the highlighted issues by the lobbyists. Again, partnerships. Private sector, because of the inadequate level of competence in some sophisticated repairs, because some of these equipments are quite sophisticated. We currently don't have any original equipment manufacturer in Nigeria because we don't generally manufacture these things. So we need the expertise of companies overseas. We need to leverage on their expertise and in conjunction or in conjunction with the NOGIC Act, transfer this knowledge from the experts onto the locals. This is what this act is all about. So they work hand in hand. In terms of regulatory compliance, the onus is also on the private sector to ensure that the rules and regulations that are put in place by the government, by the IOCs,